Chris, or aka Churmander. We have two guests. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hey guys, my name is Mike with Cardboard Kingdom.
Hey everyone, I'm Shawn Leung, also known as Pando. I guess I'm a player from the North American Continental Championship.
Yeah, and so we're excited to kind of interview you some questions about your experience. Just to kind of jump right into it. What DLCs did you get to go to?
Oh, I went to Vegas as a attendee, not a competitor. I wanted to be a competitor. If anything, I was the most confident for Vegas. And as a competitor, I got into Seattle. There, I was kind of unsure about myself, but yeah, those are the only two. One competitor, one attendee event.
Mm-hmm. And you're from California, right? So were you practicing at all the set champs, or how did you prepare for these events?
Yeah, it's been a while, but when I think back to Seattle, I don't think I practice as rigorously as some people may, I guess, think I might have. If anything, I didn't want to stress. I think stressing isn't great for your mental. I think it's gonna affect your gameplay. If anything, I played at my locals like maybe once or twice a week. After that, it's probably in the back of my mind, like, okay, what play should have I done against X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
Keeping that in mind. But at the end of the day, I wanted to have fun. And if anything, if I'm losing or winning, just have a joke about it. So there's no, I would say, I don't want to be the person to tell you how to play. I think that's a really big thing for me. How to practice. There's a right way or a better way to do that. But in terms of how to play, telling you like you shouldn't play this character, it feels like I'm telling you how to have fun, and I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to practice, not too much, more about having fun.
Yeah.
That's
At the end of the day, it's a Disney card game, and I did want to ask you if you ever felt some of that anxiety, being nervous, maybe in the top eight, just playing a match where every decision is very critical on,
Yeah.
the order of things. Did you ever feel some of that stress going into playing some opponents?
100%. I think some of the stress was that I wasn't even up in the top cut yet for Seattle. I think it was more about the vibes from my opponent. When you're at the break point of either you need to 2-0 or you're not going to make it, the moment you win one game, the vibe from your opponent could easily shift because they realize they're not going to make it anymore. Yeah. If anything, they need to play for a potential let it go promo, top 128. So the vibes go down, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be a long moment of silence. And I think that kind of, I wouldn't say bother me, but I feel like I feel that pressure. So maybe it does affect me, my gameplay just a little bit, but I wouldn't say as much. When you get into the top cut, I think you start to overthink things easily. You need to probably prime yourself, ground yourself, if anything. If you're not used to being competitive, I think you got to learn fast.
Yeah.
So, and some of the misplays I do make, I easily reflect on them fast. It's one of those things where it's like, I should not have made this misplay, but I could easily say it's probably the pressure.
Right.
That makes sense. So I'm curious, Shawn, whenever you mentioned that you went to Vegas as an attendee, was that one where you were on like the wait list to try and get in and play, or what was kind of like the experience of like, how did you become an attendee and why did you go to that event as an attendee specifically?
Yeah, so for sure I wanted to be a competitor. So there's always the chance that you get off last second.
Okay.
It looked like it wasn't happening, but all my friends were going. And I'm like, you know what? I'll still go as an attendee. Okay. So went there, did a side event. I got, I believe, top 8 for one of the side events. And I was like, you know what? I was pretty confident. I think this was the right call for me, or at least for myself, to be a competitor. I want another shot at this. So I signed up for Seattle, and lo and behold, I got in like probably a week right before.
Nice. Okay. So was the sign up process and everything? Because like I'm much more the collector, and like I play in set champs very casually, but I'm definitely not like a competitive like like high tier player by any means. So I'm always curious the sign up process for like Seattle specifically, where you got through. Were you like waiting for them to announce it? You like clicked the link and got in, or like what was kind of that process to actually be able to compete, even to just sign up?
Yeah, I think I was practicing with friends at the time, and we just no, never mind. We weren't. That was for Continental. But I honestly was just on the website maybe 5 minutes before, and I'm just hitting that refresh button.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know some people are really on top of it. I don't know how they do it, but I know some people are pretty much experienced or veterans at.
Knowing exactly when to click to get access. Yeah, probably some like botting or something going on. Who knows? But yeah, that's
Yeah.
good for the people that always get. Well, that's very exciting to hear, and I'm glad that you decided. Obviously, now looking back on it, that performance in the side event for Vegas to then give you the confidence to go to Seattle and have so much success. That's awesome. I I was rooting for you so much in the finals. I love Luke. He's a Midwest guy like myself, so like I'm not mad that he won by any means. But you were playing Steel Song, and that's like my favorite deck, and it was such a mismatch, or at least from my point of view. I don't, I just knowing the Ursula and the mechanics between Steel Song, like I know that that's very tough, and I believe you won game one, correct? Of the
Yeah.
And I was like, he's gonna do it, like the upset. Like I was texting my buddies, like I was so fired up for you. So, what was your mindset just going into that match? Obviously, I like I said, I believe it's pretty very favorable for the Emerald Steel players. So, like, what was just kind of your mindset? Did you think you were gonna lose after you won game one? Like, what was just kind of the roller coaster of that matchup?
Yeah, I guess to kind of like lead towards this point of the tournament. Prior to it, we only had one green steel player in our locals. At the time, he was just shifting over. He was an Emerald Amber player. So I didn't get too much practice with it. During the event, I think I went against 4.
Oh wow!
So I'm learning on the spot. Even prior to the event, I asked my friend like, okay, what do you not want me to do? And I would just figure it out from there.
Yeah.
So make it to top cut for day 2 in Seattle. I played another green steel player in top 32 to make it to top 16. I still remember him. He's from Canada. And honestly, he was probably the best competitor I've met. He was really nice. We were both frazzled at some judge calls, or like we understand some intentions, but we didn't execute them correctly. So, for example, it being my first time, I'm turning my ink after I draw my card. So some small things like that were kind of throwing me off. But he was really nice. He's like, hey, take a deep breath. I know what you're doing. Like, don't worry about it. He's like, if I know what you're wholeheartedly doing, like you could take back the move. Like
That's really nice.
I would hope the same. So we even took like a water break right after our first game. So really nice guy, green steel player also. So I was learning on the fly. Then I went against a sea of red purple players. Then I make my way up to Luke. And I'm like, okay, I played against this deck. This is the finals. I wholeheartedly think that Emerald Steel is a bit on in favor at the highest level. Okay. I think you need some knowledge to it, but if both players were playing perfectly, it almost feels like I'm just leaving it up to variance for my part. And the Emerald Steel player, they are in the driver's seat for a bit until I could swing it. Okay. So I think they are. I feel like they are in favor a little bit at the time for sure. And yeah, there was a moment where I thought I could win it. After winning the first game, I'm like, all right, it's happening. I guess it's happening, because I told my friends every time, like, hey, I made day 2 there, and I'm like, all right, can I stop there? Am I good? Should I stop trying? And then I get top 32, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm good now, and it just keeps on going.
Yes.
So with Luke, after the first game, I thought I could have had the second game. I remember clearly that I was playing around the one Tinkerbell top deck. That's the one thing I didn't want him to have. We're allowed to review deck list prior to our match.
Okay.
He only had 2. I kept the Zeus. I know I could have Zeused his morph. However, I'm afraid of what he could top deck instead of a Tinkerbell. So, for example, it could be sudden chill. If not a sudden chill, it could be, for example, what is it? Hypnotize.
Mm-hmm.
So cards like that, I was trying to minimize the impact of his top deck.
Yeah.
So by keeping the Zeus, and if he drew some other card, I'm pretty confident the Zeus will take it out. Then I play a whole new world. So after he top decked the Tinkerbell, I was like, I think this is it. I made a misplay after that. I could have kept my Smee and still have the same result, but I was already thinking about the next game. Come to game 3, I just bricked. I think it was time. It was time. I was on a really good streak. I was about 1-4, I believe. 1-4 or 1-5. No, 1-4, I think. During the first day of Seattle. So I had to win everything.
Wow.
So I'm in this hot streak, get to day 2, I'm in this hot streak again, and I'm like, I think it's time. I think the deck decided to give up for this moment.
It tapped out. Yeah.
So that was the experience playing with Luke. He's a really good player, and a great company.
No doubt.
How many uninkables were you running in your deck, or what's normally like the safe spot you like to be at?
At the time, it was 17 uninkables. I will say that Naveen I ran to, he underperformed for me that event.
Okay.
He saved me once, but he also cost me a game probably twice. I think there was a time where I drew a game when I could have 2-0'd, just because I drew into a Naveen. I needed ink. That's totally fine. Then I drew into a whole new world. I needed ink to hit 4. That was fine. Then I drew into Naveen again. And I didn't get the ink. So I was stuck at 3 ink, and I lost by 1 lore, I think. So it was one of those where if anything was an ink, between those turns, it would have been fine. But 17, but over time, I've come to be more comfortable with 15 or 16. I played Steel Song when it was like 19 uninkables, and I was still fine with that. It kind of comes down to how you curve things out or flow things out, but it does vary per meta.
I mean, at the end of the day, there is a lot of RNG with a dice roll with cards, and you can play your deck completely right, and there's just bad luck and there's good luck, and you top decks into something. So people need to understand that like there's luck involved in any sort of card game, right?
Yeah.
But definitely high skill level with how to play the cards in your hand. I want to ask you, is there times where you kind of have a whole new world and you notice that your opponent is like low on their cards, and like I always struggle with, do I play a whole new world because am I just helping them out? Like you need more card draw. So tell me some of the discernment with like you just fishing for Rapunzels, or like you want more cards but you also don't want to help your opponent, right? So how do you utilize that? Is it just situational or?
Yeah, at the end of the day, when it comes to using the card, it comes down to how do you benefit from it the most. Yes, you want to stop them from benefiting it, or you want to kind of put some negatives to it, like making them discard a key card. But at the end of the day, you need to benefit from it. Whether you kind of benefit more than them or not, you need to come out on top. So some of the things I keep in mind is, what did they ink? What's in their discard? So what can they draw into? What are their outs?
Yeah.
Right. So some people have this mentality as to think about, how do I not lose? When you have this mentality for not losing, it doesn't mean you have this mentality to win. I don't know if you guys played any other games. You're like, man, this boss is really strong. How do I not lose? You not losing doesn't mean you have a game plan to win. So I think about, if I make this whole new world play and they get cards, what cards are they looking for? Am I more likely to find my cards than them? If they find this card, can I be putting enough pressure where they can't even catch up? Cards like B Prep, those are just one cards that wipe it off, so those are always scary cards. But you kind of want to use some math to it. You don't need to be a really strong math guy. You just need to kind of get a feeling from it. As you play the deck, you get a feeling. Prior to the turn, what were they setting up? Did it look like they were trying to bluff you? Did it look like they were trying to burn out their hand to force you to play it? Or can you win without it? So at the end of the day, how do you benefit more from them? It's a really complicated card. I think it's a card that takes a lot of skill to utilize at the highest level. And it's weird. I've had opponents who try to bluff me. I remember in my top 16 match for North American Continentals, my opponent is digging for cards. He's playing red-blue, digging for cards. And he played one last card to dig. I forgot what, but he grabbed the card super fast. And I'm like...
He's trying to pretend like he pulled something he needs.
Yeah. I'm like...
Wow.
If it was a difficult decision, you would have taken time to it. So if the board was saying you really needed a wipe, you grabbed it really fast. However, I'm like, doing the math, the chances of you getting it is not likely. I counted every Brawl was gone, every Maui was gone, every B Prep was gone. He only had one big Sisu left. And I'm like, I don't think you have it, because there's no way they were all in the top half of the deck. One of them has to be at the bottom of the deck. And maybe one of them was sent down by an early Visions or an early Grammatala. So I'm going to take the gamble here and not play a whole new world and like put the board out and see if you have it. If you don't have it, that's telling of what you do have. And I think I could take this for a run. So it's a really hard card to play at the end of the day, Chris. Sorry if I'm rambling on this.
No, you're
good. Good insight. Yeah.
But it's a very fun card, and a card where you could be mad at yourself at or not. It has high highs and low lows. But you always prioritize.
And you're just like, great. No, I like.
You get two. You're like, all right, I need to close this game out somehow. So at the end of the day, I would say prioritize how you benefit more. Don't think about how your opponent benefits. Well, you could, but don't think about it too much. Think about yourself, and if you're trying to make them discard a card, think about what they were trying to set up right before. What are they looking for? Kind of weigh out.
That's a good point.
Weigh it out. Like, hey, I need 8 cards. They only need 2 cards. Chances are I get more of what I need.
I like that. A next level thing that I think you do is that you're able to do the statistical odds of what are they holding in their hand, what are they looking for. Most people are just focused on their own hand, and they're not thinking, what could they possibly be trying to set up next turn, or
that's
I tried playing your deck, and I had the daisies, and I played Honu Road, and then I quested the daisy after. And I was like, oh, you're supposed to actually quest daisy first, right? I was like, I don't.
Yeah, that's like third level thinking, because like when I have a whole new world, I'm thinking about first like what are my outs here so I can try and end the game? How does this benefit me? But then secondly, like I do think about what can they get from lists. Now I'm not as good as in terms of like putting the probabilities of they inked lists, they already played this, right? And really like getting down to like what could they have left. But I definitely don't think about what do they have in their hand that they're setting up that I could get rid of? Like, what's the advantage of doing it now? Not just like, how is this going to benefit me and what can they get, but what do they have, right? That's a crucial piece. Obviously, me as a casual being, just a nobody, that's like, I haven't even thought about that. So that's just like, there's levels to this. So that was really cool to hear you say.
I would say don't worry too much about the numbers. It's nice if you Google it. I've pulled up a calculator just to get a feel for things before.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I think as you do more reps, but not blind reps where you're being more critical and thinking about it, you start to get a feel. Some things you could also take into account is, okay, they just used the B prep, and I know they have one more B prep. They top deck this B prep, right? Like, let's say they top deck their third B prep. They use it. And you play a whole new world. Sometimes you're fine with it because you're thinking to yourself, what are the chances that the fourth B prep is really close to this B prep? You would think like, hey, they were all pretty stuck together. At some point, one needs to be pretty spread out, right? So it's not just the probability of, just doing the math and them drawing into it. You kind of start getting into your mind where you're like, hey, there's no way his cards are that stuck together. So that kind of makes you lean towards one decision over the other.
Very good. So are you leaning, obviously, Worlds is looming and whatnot. Are you still playing Amber Steel now? Is that, when you're looking forward to Arcasia's Island and down the road, are you Amber Steel for life? Are you mixing it up? How are you kind of feeling about the deck right now?
I've always been Amber Steel for life since I played in set 2. I did visit Hawaii with my girlfriend. She lives, she grew up on the island, and she was saying like, hey, you're going to miss set champs in LA. Let's see if there's any shots for you to play locally. Wow. And then I'm like, I don't want to be that guy who just visits and then he's just like, just in and out of nowhere, But I went there. The vibes are great. Playing against everyone's great. I went there with Ruby Amethyst. Reason why is because at the time I didn't finalize my list for Steel Song. I think I played a lot against a lot of Ruby Amethyst where I understood how to play it. You play against, like, let's say I play against Red Blue for so much where I get the understanding of what they want to do.
Right.
Outside of that moment, I've always been Steel Song. Prior to Continentals, I practiced Purple Steel. It felt very fair. It just didn't give me that high from playing Steel Song. And it's not, perhaps it was the meta. Before I had play lines where I knew maybe by turn 3 or 4, I was like, I think I have this in the bag. But with the most recent meta, set 6, and we're going to move on to set 7, it feels like I slowed down a bit. Steel Song had to slow down a bit, take a step back. However, it could still do its thing. So it's all about kind of, I guess, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Your deck will shift in the meta. It's not going to flow the same way. And if you want to, and me playing Purple Steel was trying to fill in that niche. Like, I don't have that high anymore. So Purple Steel and Steel Song are the main ones I look at. However, I'm pretty confident where if I wanted to play Red Blue, I could put in the reps. Locally, and one of my close friends, he's always playing it. Prior to day 2 and Continentals, he took a look at it. We talked about it. We don't play all night. We're just probably talking about first few play lines and thinking about every possible opportunity I could take or angle my opponent could take, and just leave it from there. So I think I have a pretty decent grasp of it. Green Steel, I think I could play it well. It just feels like I'm betraying Steel Song when I jump onto Green Steel.
How dare you?
You're playing Steel Song and then you play Green Steel and then you're like, this is the deck I don't like playing. Whether I win or lose, it just doesn't feel fun. And now why am I playing?
Yeah.
But I have to put that aside.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess a archetype I'm eyeing is blue steel. Um,
Okay.
I think just always playing a whole new world is fun, and it's the other deck that could play it.
Yeah.
However, it's pretty different. Sometimes I like to keep cards in my mulligan, but blue steel, you're kind of ramping and then finding them, looking for them. So it's not like I could keep them at the beginning. Um,
Mm,
so yeah, those are what I'm looking at.
Awesome.
mm.
Very cool.
Um, what's your play style? Like, do you tend to run like more aggro or control, or what is it about Amber Steel that kind of fits your play style?
Yeah, I so one of the things I thought about prior to Continentals was that um, everyone or majority of people might be playing a Ruby deck, and there are lines where you could be aggressive enough and go under a Ruby deck. I did some research. A lot of people who qualified for Continentals qualified with Ruby Yam or Red Blue. Both decks, there's no reason why you should jump off of it. If you want to play it, you could play it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably your strong deck, so you might stick to it. So I looked into the Diggy Diggy Hole version,
Yeah.
Yep.
trying to go a more aggressive style, and I realized that they could actually stop you if they get the cards. I've tested it multiple times. It's how you also see some tournament scores or reports where Blue Red wins against Diggy Diggy Hole. There are lines where no matter how you open up aggressively, they could take it out. And that was something I didn't like, or it didn't sit well with me. It felt like I had to just mold correctly and see what they get. I wanted a plan B. So I like to have options for my playstyle where I could go aggressive when I need to, and I could be controlly when I need to. If I wanted to be aggressive, there's other aggressive decks, and I thought to myself, am I trying to be faster than them or a bit slower? If I'm going to be faster than them, then this deck might just be the counter to blue red, but maybe not to everything else. So I wanted to have options.
Mhm.
My list ran 3 Daisy Ducks, mainly
Yeah.
because I like the option or chance, even though it's very little, I could open up with 3 daisies in the beginning. If you're on the play, you play 1 daisy, and then you play 2 more daisies the next turn against a red blue. They have a hard time.
Yeah.
They definitely have a hard time. Playing 2 daisies is fine. I think I'm always honestly biased to wanting to run 3 to have that chance. So, however, your opponent could stop you, and what's my game plan afterwards? And a lot of aggressive Diggy Diggy Hole or aggro Steel Song versions,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of burn out from there. So I wanted an out, and whether that out is a great out or not with a whole new world, maybe I could get the 2/4 lore to close out the game. So I'm lowering some early aggro cards. However, I'm scaling out to be more middle to control. So having options are nice.
Good. Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people, or I guess I would feel that most people would think that you're probably going to play the Diggy Diggy Hole variant since it had gotten so popular. But having that whole new world, it might, once it's like open deck list and people know what you're playing, then not so much. But I feel like you could catch some people off guard with not having it. Or at Continentals, was it open deck list the entire time and everyone knew what you had just from start to finish?
It was not open deck list. Well, I will say that I do feel just like many other tournaments, people do scouting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm gonna play this first game or two, and everyone's gonna walk around and know who's playing what.
The word got out. Yeah.
Word gets out. I did consider playing it. I was like, you know what? I think I played a lot of Steel Song. I could pick it up, and I think I picked it up just fine. I think it just, I would say, I just wanted to play a whole new world. That was probably it.
Yeah.
I did share the
card.
story a bit on some other interviews, but I did not have any reps with the Queen list in set 6. 0 reps. I was set on either playing Robin Hood or a Robin
Yeah.
Hood Simba. And even then, to this day, my Robin Hood list barely made any change. So I think I was onto something with Robin Hood. I know the more recent tournaments, their lists have been relatively really close, like maybe 2-3 cards off from my original list. But I had a gut feeling that Robin Hood might not be the best in a sea of Ruby deck.
Hmm.
And at the time, Din with his red blue list wasn't as popular. I know he ran almost the same list at Continentals. And I think that if word got out more, like it would have gotten much popular early on, and maybe I would have stuck to Robin Hood. I think the Robin Hood list does relatively well, decent. But again, Robin Hood just doesn't do that great to Ruby. Um, so yeah, sorry if I rambled. What was the question again?
No, you're good.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you like with the Robins and the Queens, and I noticed people run World's Greatest Criminal Mind when they run the Queens. I Was that something you were contemplating? I know you had like the bare necessities. Were you thinking in a still song deck, World's Greatest Criminal Mind kind of combos well with the Queen, right?
Hmm.
Was that something you were thinking of taking in, or the deck couldn't really fit anymore, or
Yeah. So Steel Song, so many good cards. It's hard to fit it into
it
60.
is? Yeah,
Um, the topic of World's Greatest Criminal Mind, I think going into Continentals, a lot of Ruby decks, there's going to be Maui's, there's going to be Maleficents, Kamatoas. World's Greatest Criminal Mind is just a free removal, especially if you're kind of on the edge about it being a dead card into other matchups. The Queen at least gives it some viability. Um,
yeah,
so weighing it out, where if a lot of people qualified with a Ruby deck, um, then even a Cinderella could sing it on a 3-cost Sisu. They might be playing red blue, so it doesn't hurt to have at least one. And the Queen enabled a second one. Would I had ran 3? That might be a little bit more outlandish, but I think I made the right choice with 2, especially with Queen.
okay.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
So have you?
Yeah. I
So I
noticed.
was.
Oh,
Oh, go ahead, Chris. No,
you
sorry.
go, you go, you go, you go for it. You go
You
for it.
sure? All right. So
Yeah, yeah.
with worlds like looming, obviously, I know everyone's waiting on the edge of their seats for additional details and stuff like that. Have you heard anything behind the scenes? Anything of like when are you any additional details on worlds or what may be coming at the end of this year?
I haven't heard anything, so what I know is what you guys know.
Yeah.
That's what I tell everyone. Yeah, I think that's all I could really say. I actually don't know. So there's nothing to add on to it. It's just I'm waiting too.
Wait. I bet you're waiting very eagerly because I'm waiting and I don't have any stake in the game. So I bet you're like,
What,
come on.
what, like, that, what, what sets are gonna be included in it? Do you know?
That again, I don't know. I
Okay.
want to say so my hunch is it's gonna be at the end of this set or it will be set 8. Um, I just try to be really reasonable with how other people might need to, or try to put myself in a perspective where Ravensburger wants to be reasonable and accommodating for people's time.
Absolutely.
So if it's going to be next month, there's not enough time.
Right. Right.
2 months out, maybe 3 months out, that's got to be the end of the set. But I still think people need much more of a heads up, especially if they want to start saving up on PTO. If
Absolutely.
anything, they want to kind of buy tickets way ahead of time to save money. So it's either 3 months or it's beyond. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's going to
Um,
take they've got to give people some time, and I hope they announce it soon because I know a lot of people are just ready to know, right? And they gave us the preview back at D23 in 2024 of like the they showed the whole new world promo, which for your deck, man, I hope you get some of those. Like that would just be the sickest card for your deck. Like obviously, I mean the cards can be very valuable, so about going in a deck, I don't know, but it would just be really cool to see in a deck. But I know, like you said, people need adequate time to prepare. I am curious, just the collector part of me, all these awesome cards that you've been awarded and you've won, right?
Yeah.
Is what's kind of your, as a player, are these cards that you like treasure and you hold on to? Are these cards you're using to kind of fund going to these tournaments, traveling to Florida to go to Worlds? Like, what's kind of just your strategy about them? Do they mean a lot to you? Are you looking to sell them? Just what's kind of a successful player's point of view on the trophy cards?
All right, so I am always open to selling them. I still have all my promos from, well, not all. I only have the Golden Mickey from Seattle, and I do have all my promos from Continentals. The Mickey was graded a BGS 10.
Awesome.
Nice.
It is not a black label. It's a gold
Pristine,
label,
though.
or the pristine
yeah,
one.
nice. Yep.
Yeah.
Could have been a 9.5.
It could have been. I know some people did get a 9.5, and if I got it, I would have fell onto my knees. Like in the shop, like they say it's back. They're bringing it out. I would have fallen onto my knees. But the Baymax, the Elsa's Palace, Elsa's Castle, the Cusco, and the Invite to the Ball, I still have them. Didn't even touch them. Like I'm not trying to cause anything or any damages or anything. I do have the Rapunzel playmat and the Baymax playmat. I do have some Cindy's playmat from extra tickets. And I am open to selling them. I usually try to sell them to whatever friends or people I've or associates, or basically if I know you in any way, usually you get dibs. I would rather not deal with sending out a card through mail, and I'm always skeptical about it, especially with the money. And I have gotten offers right after the events that I play at. However, I feel like there's a lot to think about at the time because I can't put a number on it. So I don't know if and it's reasonable. I feel like I don't know if I'm getting lowballed. Like they're putting a lower than average price, and I understand when it's fine because you're trying to get something out of it, but it's hard for me to think on the spot.
Yeah.
So I tend not to really sell it on the spot unless giving it some time. The person wants to really talk to me or talk about what they want to do with it. Basically that. But I do think the Invite to the Ball is a nice memento, memorabilia.
Right.
The Baymax and the others, I'm okay parting with it.
Gotcha.
And it'll fund my trip to Disney World. I haven't been there. So
Okay. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I'm very curious. Thank you for sharing that. That's great insight. And I'm very curious about, all the cards are amazing. I love them all, but the Baymax in particular, that one they hadn't used before. And I don't know if they've really given too much details about how long they're going to use that one. But when you compare that, if they only use it for Continentals here and in Europe, and maybe if they do some overseas or something, I don't know if they are or not. But then, if they have it at Worlds and it's only those 3 events, that could easily be one of the rarest promos there is, significantly rarer than even the Golden Mickey. So I'm very interested to see, do they take that promo then into DLC season 2? Or, what's kind of just the future of these promos? Because, for example, if someone sold their Baymax now for whatever the market rate is, let's just say it's $5,000. I have no clue what it is. If it's $5,000, I mean, that card, it could be a $20,000 card if they say after Worlds we're no longer, awarding this promo. It truly might be that scarce. And so I think in your shoes, I would advise, just hold on to them for a little bit. They're awesome to, just kind of, you said you don't want to damage them. You haven't touched them. You're not really looking at them. But at the end of the day, those cards obviously have significant value. It's an awesome memento for you, the Invite to the Ball. But there's just so much unknown that we don't really know, how many of these cards are going to give out. And if that Baymax doesn't get awarded, it very easily could be the rarest card in Lorcana, apart from the world's 1 of 1, which if you win that card, I think you could fund, all your future, trips and tournaments. So that would be just an awesome way to cap off this run for you. That would be significant. So very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
The card is really nice. It's really nice. I looked at mine. I'm glad it's a really clean cut. So it's one of those where I feel like it's definitely a PSA 10. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be a really rare card. If they're not going to reprint it in any other way, you could argue that numerically it is, or quantitatively, there's less than a Golden Mickey. However, in the long run, Golden Mickey is serialized. It's there to stay. I think it's just more future-proof, if anything. The Baymax, it's up to what they want to do with it. They could either just limit it to just the 16, or even at Worlds, they add another 4 or another 8.
Yeah.
It's still more rare than the Mickey. But over time, the Mickey, I think, comes out on top.
So I if it gets anywhere close to the amount of like sheer numbers, then the Golden Mickey will prevail. But if we end up getting 500 Golden Mickeys, and let's say there's 50 Baymaxes, or like 20, 25, like I think the rarity of that card will outweigh the provenance of the Mickey. Not going to be wrong on that. That's just my studying a lot of the like trophy cards on Pokemon side of things and whatnot. Like usually, like if it's truly like that rare, like the multipliers on the price are significant. And so the Baymax is one for sure. Like if I were in your shoes, like I'd be playing that one very close to the chest to kind of see what they do with it, because it's one that could outweigh every other card. Just once again, depending on what they do. And you could be right. The serialized Mickey definitely could have more provenance, and it likely will if the numbers get close. But the rarity of that card, it intrigues me a lot as a collector. So.
For sure. It makes me think what's gonna be at Worlds. I know there's gonna be the whole new world.
Yeah.
That one is a really nice card. That one is
card
a really nice
awesome.
Card. Yeah. So yeah, no complaints on that. But if they put a Baymax or such, or in the long run they make it a more consistent thing to kind of have it at Continentals or Worlds, then eventually the quantity will build up.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a long haul, or a long game to hold it. But it is a really nice card.
Yeah.
Looking at it, it was probably my favorite. But the Elsa's castle was really pretty. I think it visually. I think the foiling with it looked nice.
Okay, I haven't seen that one in person. I know the Baymax. Like whenever they were releasing Azurite Sea, and we started to get some of the reveals, and you saw some of the cards. Like I was hoping that was going to be an enchanted in the set. And obviously, the foils ended up being completely different the way they structured those enchanteds. But nevertheless, that card, and I think they probably will continue to use it, because I don't serializing the Mickey out of 1 of 500 to then have release that Baymax and it only be like a 20 or a 25. Like it kind of takes away from the Mickey a little bit if there is cards that much more rare. So I don't think they're gonna do that, but it's just one like. Yeah, maybe they didn't think that out, and they've got new promos planned. You never like they're like even just the set championship cards and the promo cards for this upcoming organized play season. Like they're changing the emblems on the bottom to match the DLC emblems, and so like maybe they didn't have this stuff thought out, and the Baymax really is just going to be incredibly rare. So yeah, it's definitely worth the gamble to just hold on to it for a little bit. But that's really really cool.
Shawn, I wanted to ask you if you've played in any other TCGs before, or any competitive play in like Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, or any other TCGs previously before Lorcana.
I played Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's one of those things where I played in high school, and I was just playing with the local friend meta. So I wasn't even going to an LGS. Then they started going to LGS, but I don't think I was at that competitive level where I even wanted to play at an LGS. I still supported my friends going there, and I just like sat at a table and played whoever. Maybe it's the competitive anxiety. Maybe I've come a long way. Over time, I tried Hearthstone.
There's a lot of similarities with Hearthstone and Lorcana.
I burned out pretty quick on Hearthstone. I think I burned out in the first 3 sets. Maybe because played a lot and the content wasn't pumping out fast enough. I felt that way with Legends of Runeterra, the League of Legends
Yeah.
one. So I only played like the first set, and then I burned out. And then I came back when Arcane had their event and played for a month, and I burned out again. So I never really stuck with a card game for long. I did try to go back to Yu-Gi-Oh at one point, stopped after 3 months, short-lived, and I just kind of put it down. But when it came to playing Lorcana, I was just trying to find out what I want to do as a hobby. I finished graduate school, came back to California, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be looking for work. In addition to that, what am I going to do in the meantime? And it was always fun to socialize with people through card game. I think that's something that's hard to do these days as you grow out of college or as you get older. It's hard to socialize with people. Having some sort of medium like a card game was great.
It's perfect.
And I think in terms of what contributed to my journey with card games, because I don't really have too much of, I guess, a competitive experience with it, was playing more video games, if anything. I think the logic of video games and how you probably approach it transfers to card games. Especially if you're playing something like fighting game, like Street Fighter, or you're playing Counter-Strike or Valorant, those FPS games. It really makes you think what your opponent is trying to do.
Yeah, I was about to say that,
So I'm always doing that when I play the card game. And it's like, okay, if I always think they have this, how do I indicate or tell myself that they don't have it? So I'm getting into my own head at times.
That's awesome to hear. That gives me hope. Just like I said, I'm more of a casual guy, but like when I think of like people like Luke at Seattle, like that guy's been playing Magic for like 20 years or like, you know, however long. And so like so many of these people have just been grinding these TCGs. And like me and my friends, very similar to you, we played Yu-Gi-Oh amongst our friends in high school, never went to an LGS. And then they kind of got into Lorcana and that got me into it with my family and whatnot. But the game is so fun. But I just like, I meet all these people who have just been playing forever. And I went to my first set champs and like people were scouting and like there were like these like just like clusters of people who were discussing metagames and strategy. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. Like it was so intimidating. But hearing someone like yourself, like, I mean, you haven't been, you know, grinding Magic for 20 years. You've done some stuff here and there. You're a gamer. It sounds like more or less you're just a competitor, right? And you want to win and you're kind of, you know, putting play lines together of how you can be most successful. So that's, as a casual, that's awesome to hear that you haven't, you know, been playing Magic for 20 years and this is just like you've been bred into it since you were a kid. So that's really cool to hear.
I call it luck because I am like 1-for-1 in a DLC as a competitor, then 1-for-1 at Continentals. You could say it is luck, but I also feel that way too. I think other people who put in the work could do it too. Variant is a thing, but I guess I am doing something right. I guess that's what I tell myself. There is luck, but there is something I am doing right.
No doubt about it.
And you mentioned Magic. I know a lot of people come from Magic. It's weird because I feel like I want to start playing Magic, but not competitively. More like the for fun Commander format I always hear people talk about. And yeah, not to deviate things, but that Final Fantasy set's coming out, and I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan. I know that overlaps with Kingdom Hearts, and that gets into Lorcana, hopefully.
That'd be awesome.
At some point,
that would be awesome. So I want to play more for fun. But when it's time to be competitive, I will lock in. But hopefully, I will do it correctly because I think prior to Continentals, I practiced only a week or two. But I was probably coping the stress with Marvel Rivals or any other game. You know, I'm like, I should be practicing, but you know what? I'm gonna play some. Some video games instead.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, you can only stress so much about it, right? And you've got to have fun with it. It sounds like you're definitely doing something right. And to your point, luck is definitely a thing, right? And Chris, you said this earlier. What cards are you going to get? Where are you going to mulligan? There's so much variance in the game to game. But a lot of these tournaments, I mean, like yourself, like you've one have won at DLCs, one have won at Continentals. A lot of these other players have topped a lot of these events despite the variants, right? So that's one thing that, as a casual player, I love about Lorcana. When I go to just like set champs, like there's all these different deck formats, all these different ink combinations, but a lot of the times these same players are rising to the top because they're just really good, right? And I want a game as just a casual, you can express your skill, you can be competitive. There is some variance, like kind of any given Sunday type of feel to it, like the NFL. But like the good players are probably going to outplay their bad hands and things like that. And just as a general fan, that's a really cool feeling. And like you said, you're doing something right. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So luck's a part, but don't sell yourself short. You're definitely you're making the right moves for sure.
Thank you.
I had a few more questions left. What do you think of Arcasia's Island? Like, have you been checking out these cards and thinking like how you want to play them, or what are some of your thoughts with this new set coming out?
Yeah, I do feel Steel Song got little to nothing. Traditional Steel Song off the bat, I would say off the bat, that's subject to change over time here.
Yeah.
I mean, but that doesn't really dissuade me from playing it. I think I look back at this previous set 6, and I look back at Continentals. I basically played a set 5 deck. I played my Seattle list with a 3-card difference. The only set 6 card was a Lilo, and that never saw the light of day, never landed into the discard. Oh, it landed in the discard, never came out. Or it was ink. That was basically it.
Yeah.
So I tell myself, even the edits I have in mind, they're not including set 6 cards as much. Currently, my edits would be to incorporate more piglets because of Din's famous RB list right now. But that's not a new card. So with Arcasia's Island, they didn't get too much. However, they get some, and I would want to be testing it, exploring it, have some fun with it. I think the Sapphire cards look a lot of fun. I think the talk is Sapphire right now.
For sure.
Yeah.
Is it
anything?
Yeah, Sapphire
anything.
Is it overhyped? Maybe, maybe not. But I think it is something to explore. Maybe get an answer. So I know what direction I want to take my playstyle to. Purple Steel, I would still play. Again, it is probably like the closest thing to a Steel Song for me, if it's not Steel Song. But I'll still play it out. But as for cards that stood out to me, what I think about them, I thought Cobra was pretty good. I think Steel Song or Blue Steel would be the card that targets it more to remove it. But if you're not playing those cards, or maybe Green Steel could do it too, for sure. It could stick. It could get you some lore. I think that the Sapphire Coil, that one has a lot of people talking. I do think it is a very scary card, but at the same time, I think for a red-blue player, it throws them off their curve. That small ink really matters, and they also need to keep on inking, and sometimes they want to keep cards in their hand. So at some point, it's a dead card, or it just becomes Hiram Fuel. That's what makes it really great. So it is a good card. I don't know if it's the game-breaking card just yet, especially, but it is on my radar. The Tamato and Scrooge legendaries, they look great. Yeah. I was hoping for something really great with Amber, or maybe a dual ink song. Right. I would have liked a song where it was like maybe do X damage, heal X.
Yeah.
That could have been something. It's a song, it's a Steel Song. It makes use of healing, which Amber has kind of struggled to get use out of. But we got what is it? The Aurora, and what is the other card? The Minnie Mouse. So we'll see what happens with that. I do think that for a card I thought was pretty good is the Queen, the legendary one. We'll see how it plays out, but I always look back at Amber Amethyst, just because I want to play it differently in some way. Whether people see it as an aggro deck, but I want to just see if it could break out of it anyway. So it's just more for fun for me. The steel cards, Bajira is pretty good. Gantu looks like it's going to be a card that people look at. And I think that's all I could recall for now. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite enchanted of the set?
Ooh, from the set, there's a lot of good ones that stood out.
I love the set a lot.
What's the chase? I don't know.
I've got a lot of good ones. The Tamatoa, like, I don't know. It's just so different and unique. Plus, it's like a very meta card. So, like, I think that's definitely, it's going to be one of the front runners. That's just like pure art. Everything else taken away. Like the Tamatoa, I don't know. When I saw that, it just did something to me. I love that card to death. That's definitely my number one.
It's saying blue steel, right? It's holding
exactly. It's just, and I've played Amber Steel. That's for sure, like my main deck. But I already have a blue steel deck built. Like I'm playing that Tamatoa, like that. I need some enchanted copies of that card in my life. So yeah.
I feel that I like for sure. I look at the art like many other people, right? It's enchanted. It's the alternate art. I think the ones that stood out to me, whether they're going to be used or not, was the All Is Found song, the one with Elsa, Anna, and the mom.
Sure. Absolutely.
That one was a really pretty card. I think for a princess, it was probably Aurora or Belle.
Yep.
And I think the glass slipper, it probably stood out to me, and then it kind of disappeared a little.
It was one of the first ones that got revealed, so the hype kind of left it behind.
Yep. And I thought the colors, maybe it's just the image, but the colors worked really well for the Show Me More Amethyst card. It's the one with the queen.
The queen, yep.
Yep. So those are the ones that stood out to me. As for like maybe a steel song card like Bolt, I think he's all right, but I think the other ones just look better.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, that's my take on the enchant.
Okay. My last question I had was, what sort of advice do you have for new players coming into the game, maybe casual players that want to kind of get better or kind of level up? What sort of things? Maybe they haven't gone to a DLC. What sort of skill? Like you talked about, like turning your ink before you play, and you made some like. What are some things that people like myself could like work on to improve their game?
I think some of the advice I still hold to myself is to not be afraid to fail, not be afraid to lose. I need to still work on that because I think that kind of flared up a bit after Continentals. I went to my locals and everyone's like, oh man, I'm playing against Shawn. I'm like, variance is a thing, right? Like, I don't want the pressure to keep on winning. I want to lose so I could learn. And when I want to learn, there's no better way than to lose. I think you want to have that frame of mind, not really be discouraged. If you're playing the game to always win, then you should be like the best player. Like, I don't see myself too like up there, but in terms of someone with like 100% win rate, you should be the best player. You should be going to Worlds, winning all the DLCs. You could be that person, but let's be realistic. Chances are you're not, because nobody's that player yet. Yeah. So don't be afraid to lose. And when you do lose, be honest with yourself and reflect. If someone someone gives you advice, you don't have to shut them down. If anything, they give advice for a reason. And if you feel like it's relevant to you, sure, take it. If not, that's all right. But however, there's something new to kind of consider. And in one way or another, it's probably going to come up. So should you have quested a character? Yes or no? Why? Depending on your matchup. Was this turn important for you to play a Pete? yes, no, why. As you kind of learn game knowledge, because that's something a new player doesn't know yet, um, you're going to start building on those skills. So when you ask yes, no, why, should I do this, should I do that, you wouldn't know unless you knew what cards they had. You wouldn't know unless you knew what they wanted to do. So you kind of need to start somewhere and just play the game, have fun, make mistakes, but those mistakes don't really define you. And be in that frame of mind to want to learn. Because if you're losing and you're not trying to learn, then it's not going to look good for you if it's not meeting your expectation.
That's solid.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. It resonates a lot with me. I was just watching The Last Dance, that Michael Jordan documentary. I love Michael Jordan. He's like one of my personal heroes, one of the great winners of all time. And in The Last Dance, one of the last episodes, he talks about, I only am so good at winning because I've lost a lot. And like, I have a lot of revere and respect for losing, and like using that to, gain leverage, not being afraid to lose. That made me a great winner. But he talks about the correlation and the respect for losing. So it's funny. I was just watching that yesterday, and like you'd kind of hit on that exact same point. Like, you have to lose to win, and it's what you take away from it, right? Like, use it to energize yourself, think back, list play, and think about where you went wrong. But yeah, losing is a huge part for any winner. If you're going to be a good winner, you gotta learn to lose, and lose in a good way.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge secret to success in anything in life, whether it's Lorcana or you can extrapolate that out to anything you're trying to do to gain an edge on. So I think that's a very good point, Shawn.
I agree, and yeah, thank you for sharing that, because it definitely is something to take out in the game. And also, I guess to add on to it, don't be too hard on yourself. So when you do lose, don't be too hard on yourself. Yeah. Yes, you are learning, but
yeah, that's a good point.
I've seen some people feel very discouraged. And it's just a game, and with the right people around you, like, it'll be okay. However, don't be like, I would say, don't be that person who, I guess not to pull things to the side, but on the other perspective, it touches on being a good winner. So like you said, Mike, don't be that person who probably makes it hard to be a good loser.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Right? It's like, hey, I'm a pretty good loser.
Yeah. You don't want to be happy to lose, right? Yeah,
Yeah. Like I'm like, I could be a good loser, right? But don't make it hard for me to be a good loser. Right? It goes back to, you have to be a good winner too.
Yeah, don't be a bad winner. Yep.
I was just trying to figure out.
Have some humility even when you win.
Yep. So I was just trying to figure out how to word that.
For sure.
So don't be too hard on yourself too. But yeah.
And to your point, what you brought up earlier was just the community around it is something that I really love, is hanging out with people, talking about the game, talking about the new set, ripping packs, playing Pack Rush, there's just something very powerful about the community around Disney Lorcana that I'm just absolutely in love with. But with that being said, I do want to thank you for your time. I want to respect everyone's time for today. Yeah. But anything else, Mike, Shawn, anything before we wrap up?
No, I would just thank you to Shawn for coming on. It was a pleasure to get to know you and chat with you, and thanks for sharing some of your stories and insight with us.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. It was great talking to you guys. I would like to give a shout out to my girlfriend, Christine, from Hawaii. She's here with me now. We want to go back to Hawaii. We want to visit.
When are you coming back? Are you coming back sometime?
I was supposed to go back in December, but ticket prices spiked like crazy. And also, she says I should have practiced for Continentals. Lo and behold, I kind of didn't until like the week before, so I could have maybe went. And then we're looking to go this summer. So definitely, great. I'll reach out. I'm not too active on Facebook, but I will hop on Facebook. If anything, I'll you up on Discord. But other than the shout out there, shout out to my local group of friends, everyone who's been there as part of my journey, and even Hawaii. being there. I still remember you guys, even though I'm only there and played
Yeah.
2 set champs. I like to kind of just acknowledge everyone who's been a part of my. It does feel surreal. Like I said, I could be just like you guys, and I am just like you guys, not coming too much from a TCG background. I acknowledge my position, and anyone could work really hard and get there. Variance is also a thing. And other than that, I guess if anyone's interested in learning more about Steel Song, I do have a guide on Metafy. I feel like I wrote a lot, too much for me to really say in words at times, or maybe there's some things I can't say in words, but I hope it's a resource to kind of help people in their Steel Song journey. If not, it puts you in a frame of mind to play the game and apply it to different decks. It is in need of edits in the sense where I finished it, but I need to proofread the last section or such. But I kind of want to just give back to the community in any way. So through Metafy and through anyone who's curious, feel free to reach out.
We'll put the links in the description if people want to check that out.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. But I would say, well, nothing to say. Sorry, didn't want to drag that on. It was just a trailing thought.
Thank you so much for your time today, Shawn. Thank you, Mike, and I guess that's it for today. And hope you guys can like, comment, subscribe, and follow for more content. Hopefully we can catch up and do this again sometime.
After Shawn wins Worlds.
Yeah.
I don't want that pressure.
Yeah, all right. He won't win, but maybe. All right. Thank you, guys.
We're going to end here. Thank you.